Hello, beautiful alchemist. Welcome to Reiki Radio. I am your host, Yolanda, and I am excited to share another beautiful conversation with you today. I had another opportunity to sit with one of the contributors from the new book, Reiki Heart and Soul Many Stories, One Bright Light, that was put together by Ifatayo White. I am a contributor in this book, but today's guest is also a beautiful contributor. Her name is Reverend Tonya Parker. And Tonya, you may remember if you've been listening to Reiki Radio for some time, she came on the show, I believe it may have been around 2018. And she also goes by the moniker of the throat chakra shaman. So if you remember that guest, this is her. She is back all of these years later. But she is the founder and creatrix of Mind, Body, and Soul Food, a holistic wellness and conscious healing practice devoted to nourishing women's lives from the inside out. And with more than 3 decades of experience as a psychotherapist, educator, healer, and spiritual teacher, Tonya bridges ancestral wisdom and modern restorative practices to support deep, sustainable well being. So she has so many beautiful offerings. And you may remember from last time, she's also a self identified witch, which is an acronym. Women in Tune with Conscious Healing. And she teaches from a lived practice guiding women to heal generational patterns, reclaim their voices, and rise as conscious leaders in their lives and communities. And you can follow her work. She has an Instagram account that is at throat underscore chakra underscore shaman. And there's also a link to the Witch book series, which she tells us about in the episode. So the link to the books is down in the show description. And you can also reach out to her through her email address, which is throatchakrashaman@gmail.com. I am very excited to share this conversation with you. As always, it's just full of so many juicy, beautiful nuggets that I know will be supportive of other practitioners, teachers, seekers, humans on these paths. So enjoy, and I will see you on the other side. Hey everyone, we are here again many years later with the beautiful Reverend Tonya Parker. My Boston accent just came back. That's weird. I'm sorry about that. Tonya Parker. That is so strange. I don't know why that happened. But I have to say, and as I was saying prior to recording, it is amazing to come back around all of these years later and have another conversation with you. So thank you for joining me today.
Truly my pleasure. I'm so glad to be back and to see your beautiful glowing face. I'm so glad we got to reconnect again, what, 8 years later?
Yes, yes. It's wild when you think about it. I mean, one time goes so quickly, but interesting now to reconnect through Mama Ifatayo. And for everyone listening, just before we begin, Tanya is also a beautiful contributor to the book, Reiki Heart and Soul, Many Stories, One Bright Light. Oh, you have your copy too.
Absolutely.
And there are so many beautiful, incredible stories, 22 different stories in this book. And it's interesting. I guess because we spoke so long ago, I'm like, I don't know that I heard all of this background to what your experience and your path has been with Reiki. But I want to talk a bit about that, but not necessarily start at the beginning. One thing that really struck me about your story that I think so many of us can resonate with is you talk a lot about how Reiki has been there when times have been very challenging. And I love that you even start your story with how when we ask for something to show up for us, we'll almost be like tested or have to prove the evidence of it. And you recognizing that you are an expression of Reiki, that showing up in life. So I wanted to ask you that first. How has that been for you? What was even the transition from going from Reiki as just a thing I do to realizing it's something that I live?
Hmm. That's a great question. Yeah, so when I was first attuned in 2005, it absolutely was to me another modality.
Yeah.
I had been a psychotherapist. I was currently at the time a massage therapist. I think at that time I had become certified as an aromatherapist or very soon after. And, just collecting, amassing modalities and what can I pull out and use depending on what the client's need was. And somewhere over the years, a transformation took place. And for me, it truly crystallized once I went to Mama Ife Tayo's in 2020. It was right before the pandemic shut down. It was literally sandwiched between my mother passing away on February 6th, 2020, and our having her homegoing service, and then the end of the month, our having that 3-day training with Frans Stiene from the International House of Reiki. And I remember taking the train down and taking the train back on March 1st and trying to figure out, okay, I need to find some masks because they're talking about this disease, et cetera, et cetera. So it struck me during the training with Franz, it really resonated because I had been having conversations with Ife Tayo because she's a dear friend and mentor and big sister, et cetera, et cetera. And just seeing that this Reiki stuff isn't separate. Now, I'm an interfaith minister. I have been exposed to the concept of non-duality and oneness and all of that, but I originally was just seeing Reiki as this thing, this separate thing that I had to turn on and turn off when I was done. And things started clarifying for me because people would say, it's just something about your presence. I feel comfort when you're in the room. I just feel a sense of peace and ease. And I got that so many times over and over. And I realized that it's like, okay, I'm Reiki because I'm not in there actively doing Reiki with people.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have been, but it's like, okay, Reiki is, I'm beginning to embody this. And so when Franz taught us about, there is no separation between the practitioner, the receiver of the Reiki, and the Reiki itself. It just was a ding, ding, ding that brought it all home for me. So having that knowledge is everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting hearing you say this because it does give, I mean, it points to how powerful our perspective is, but something about that awareness, how it then allows us to go into a different type of relationship with life force in of itself. It really does, as simple as it sounds, it makes a big difference in how we approach, how we even recognize what Reiki really is, what life force really is, what all of this is really about. So you
Mhm.
mentioned around that time, right before the pandemic and your mother passing and all of these things. And so it seems like there was a domino effect that happened at that time. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I met you prior to all of this, and anyone can go back in the archives and hear when you came before. I think it was around 2018, and you're also known as the throat chakra shaman, for anyone who
Mhm.
remembers the episode. But there was a lot going on that you were doing the retreats and all of these things and sharing in all these incredible ways. And then it really did take a shift. And it was hard for a lot of people having to shut down and no longer be able to connect in the ways that we were prior.
Yeah.
Looking at that now, like even hindsight, how was it that your relationship to Reiki or even your new understanding of it, did that really help you get through what had to be such an incredibly challenging time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, first there was my mom, the light of my life, the love
Yeah.
of my life,
Yeah.
getting sick, having the return of this cancer.
Mm,
And, you know, knowing that, okay, here's her prognosis. She is such and such years old. and she's not going to be able to go through chemo,
Right.
radiation, things like that. So that's when I really turned turned to Reiki a great deal as a bridge for her treatment. I
Yeah.
wasn't there in town to take care of her like my sister was,
Yeah.
like the hospice nurses, like one of my brothers and, family friends. So my daily practice was Reiki,
Mm.
sending it to my mom, shoring up my sister, shoring up myself in the face of this unfathomable grief.
Yes.
Because that's what happens with hospice. You start grieving ahead of time because you know what's coming.
Right.
And so her prognosis was not good. And the doctors were shocked that she lasted for 16 months in home hospice.
Wow.
She was diagnosed again in October, and we had a big family Thanksgiving celebration that November. We thought it would be the last. We thought that she would be gone by the end of the year. We were wondering if she would make her birthday, all of these things, right? And so for her to not just get to that Thanksgiving, but to experience yet another Thanksgiving and another Christmas and birthday and go into the next year. And I truly believe, this is my personal belief, that she made a choice
Yeah.
when all the talk and whispers about this illness happened. It's like, okay, it's time to go.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't even imagine um, all the hoops we would have had to have jumped through to access her after all this was happening. So that was a big thing. So I was doing a lot of distance Reiki with her and feeling the connection. In the meantime, I had other friends who were going through illnesses. I was doing end of life Reiki for a couple of my friends. And, one of them, every morning, she was part of my regimen. She was lasting years beyond her prognosis. And then I had someone who had long COVID at that point. And so I was doing daily treatments for her. So I really had all the other distractions to get out of the way once the pandemic really settled in. My mom had passed. And so I focused on the distance Reiki
Yes.
because that we could do. I was doing massage full time, and that totally got shut down during the pandemic. Became illegal, basically.
Right.
We couldn't do that. So Reiki was my lean in. I also shifted to doing a lot of relax and restore sessions, meditation, self massage, breath work, virtually for companies and individuals. And I still do that. But Reiki really kicked in, and I began to see the difference it made for people. And I can feel the deepened connection because what I know the more we practice Reiki and engage, more sensitive we become,
Right.
the more we get in tune with our intuitive selves. And so you can pick up on information. And so I had a few people to start coming in and wanting that distance Reiki during that pandemic time. And I started to, as things opened up a little bit more, I started to train some people in a very safe and careful way.
Yeah.
And I noticed the way I was teaching was very different. I had learned differently from Franz and I couldn't go back. You
Yes.
know how they say, I just couldn't unsee that. I couldn't unlearn what I had learned. So it's like, yeah, this is the way I was taught. And this is the way that I am now learning and experiencing Reiki for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so my whole teaching practice, my whole practice of Reiki has shifted
Yeah.
since that time.
Wow. I have to tell you, Tanya, and I'm glad you bring this up because one of the things that you mentioned in your story in the book, I wanted to ask you about that of how teaching Reiki taught you so much about the technique. But before we get to that, something you just shared about feeling connected to your mom and doing Reiki for her and doing Reiki for other people, doing the remote sessions in Kaku. I wanted to ask you about this too, because a lot of times I think, especially when we first start, there's so much concentration, maybe even fear or skepticism. Am I really connecting to another person? And because we're so in our head about it, we get in the
Mhm.
way of the actual experience of it. But then when
Yeah.
we finally surrender to the experience of it, it's incredible what it does reveal to us about truly being connected to each other. The fact that you
Hmm.
can feel someone and they're not in the same physical space. So I was curious about that, what that was like for you now, hindsight, in
Hmm.
such a trying times, directing your mind to Reiki, like you were spending so much time with your mind directed towards that and what it was
Hmm.
showing you. Like, what was that like for you? Did that change you in any way? What it showed you?
For me, it was a healing balm,
Yeah.
because this pandemic, it was scary.
Hmm.
And my mom had just passed. And in a sense, it felt like I didn't have permission to fully grieve my mom.
Mm,
Thank goodness I had 16 months of preparation to try to get through,
right.
because at this point, it felt like I was fighting for my own life.
Yeah.
We were trying to navigate and be as safe as possible. We were trying to find a way to make a living anew. We were doing all of this. So it was a really scary time.
Yeah.
So Reiki was a healing balm. It helped to restore that faith. The precepts, there's something that I lean into every morning. That's just part of my practice. And so just for today, I will not worry. My mind can go to worry very quickly. I'm an
Yeah.
air sign, so we can be in our heads. And so for me, it's like, okay, I can think about this, but it's not helpful to dwell into this.
Hmm.
Just for today, I will not anger. So yeah, people were doing Nimrod stuff, but
Yeah.
but I couldn't be in that space. It's like I didn't have the luxury because I knew better. And when you know better, you can do better. And I chose to do better and lean into the Reiki and not succumb to the lower vibrational energies that were flying high during that time, and some which have continued into this time, right?
Yeah.
Um, it just I felt like I had to really dig in and be the light,
Mm,
be that universal love energy, because we were seeing counter to that.
right.
So it's like, no, I don't choose that lowest common denominator right there. I don't choose to be that way. This is what I choose. And so Reiki really helped guide me through that time.
Wow. It's so powerful because again, I think it really puts emphasis on some aspects of the practice that I don't think people talk about enough. Especially how it can support us as the ones, working with it, whether as practitioners or teaching it. There's a lot of storytelling around working on other people and, what
Hmm.
their results may be. But it's
Hmm.
beautiful to hear the way that it also held you. And again, just that importance of the way we see things contributing to the way we experience things because you could
Absolutely.
have amplified and made any aspect of what was challenging louder, and that could have been so much harder.
Hmm.
But even with what you were going through, you having this choice of, I'm going to amplify and embody more of this. I mean, that, I don't know, it's incredible to hear. And just a side note, you're a Libra, right? I think I remembered that
I
from last
am,
time. Yes,
yes.
yes. Yes, I do that. Okay, so that that is really powerful, but then want to come back around to what you learned when you finally decided to teach Reiki, because the way you tell your story in the book, you learned some healing touch in massage school and Reiki, it didn't seem like it quite landed with you too tough at first. And then
Right.
at some point when you were asked to teach it and you said yes, then all of a sudden something shifted, right? So could you
Hmm.
talk a little bit about that and how impactful that can be to teach what we want to understand?
Hmm. So, I've spent a lot of years teaching in
Mhm.
some classroom or another,
Yeah.
right? So, my first, I guess, teaching experience was at Hampton University. And I was teaching counseling courses, right?
Mm.
Did that for a couple of years. In massage school, I taught massage school after I had graduated and everything for some years. I
Yeah.
taught public speaking for 7 years. And right now, I am doing substitute teaching work. I've taught a lot of holistic classes. But when it came to that Reiki, it was no, no, no. And I will be the first to say, oh, I'll teach whatever you want me to. I can be a talking head. Give me a topic, give me the subject matter, the course materials, and I'll teach it. Not with Reiki. When Reiki came up, it was like my core childhood issues of not enoughness
Mm.
kicked in. I had this belief that I wasn't good enough, I didn't know enough, I wasn't practicing enough, and I have heard it multiple times from students of mine. And so that came from, learning Reiki and seeing it as this thing separate from me,
Mhm.
not what I'm embodying, right? And so it took literally the second mastery class in Reiki for it to click in. And it's like, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I am ready and I've been ready. And it's like, how can I exist with not enoughness and Reiki?
Yeah.
They were running counter to each other. It's like I couldn't dwell in both of those energies, right? So, and I began to see Reiki. One of my former teachers, Rev Bear, Reverend Dr. Anthony Farmer, he talked about Reiki, instead of looking at it as mastery, which we can define that in our heads. It can have this meaning to us that, we're all that and we know everything, et cetera, right? And he talked about it being learning the Reiki mysteries and discovering for ourselves the mysteries. And that was a really important shift. Being throat chakra shaman, words are important for me.
Yeah.
And if you can re-language something in a way that makes sense to me, it opens up the world. So it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't have to master. And I also learned that everything I've taught, every time I've been in the classroom, there's this reciprocal process that's happening. I may be standing there as the instructor, but I'm always learning
Yeah.
from everyone. And so with Reiki, I would learn from, what they were doing. I would learn from my responses. People come up with different things. We talk about what happens when we get attuned or what could happen, the healing crises that can happen, the cleansing as our channel clears,
Yeah.
and just, knowing that it's like, oh, I've had skin outbreaks, I've had breakthrough bleeding,
Mhm.
I've had, you know, diarrhea and vomiting and all these things. And one time I had a student who had bleeding from her ears.
Oh, wow.
That was like a new one for me. And it's
Yeah.
like, it just expanded things for me. It's like, okay, cleansing can happen in different ways. And this student happened to be legally deaf
Mm.
and she had bleeding from her ears, and there was nothing wrong. She
Yeah.
got it checked out, but that was her release
Yeah.
after the Reiki. So it's always something. And I dare say the learning may be about the subject matter, but most times I see the learning is about me
Yes.
and
Yeah.
how I'm reflected in that person that I'm teaching. Because, we're just presented with all of these mirrors anyway, right?
It's incredible because what you're saying, even prior to this last bit you just said, I was thinking of how what we hold, it really gets exposed to us. Like how you were saying this, not enoughness was running
Mhm.
side by side with the Reiki and how do they exist. And
Mhm.
so many people, and I'm so glad we have these kinds of conversations because of this. A lot of people, when we come into this work, we're not necessarily prepared for how aware we become of our wounds.
Mhm. Mhm.
No one really prepares us for that in class, and so then all of a sudden you're practicing on your own, and like you get struck with these aha moments that are,
Mhm.
they have a lot of weight to them. And so to hear that and to know that while you could not deny it but still function in healing and recognize the light that you are at the same time, it's really,
Mhm.
really powerful. And I'm glad you shared, because I think a lot of people need to hear that. So, just
Mhm.
curious, as you kept in your practice and having the awareness of that coming up, were there different shifts in your perspective? Did you notice any kind of challenging the story around that? What did you do with that?
Mhm. Mhm. One, it helps me to know that I need consistency in my practice.
Mm,
Because even if I can coast for a while and things seem pretty cool, it's like something will get triggered and I can be back in that space of not enoughness.
yeah,
So healing definitely comes in layers. So being in the Reiki energy is something I need to cultivate continuously
yeah,
every day, every day, every day. So it becomes a way of life. It becomes life.
yeah.
It's like a form of prayer. It's like a form of meditation. It's all of that, and it needs to be consistent
Mm,
for me.
yeah,
I'll speak for myself, to counter all the societal messages, the drama and the trauma from childhood and other occurrences that have taken place. Um, so, yeah, just seeing how I feel when I immerse myself in that energy. And that is reminder.
it's so interesting because you called it a little bit ago. You said how it was kind of like this balm, like a healing
Mhm.
balm or a
Mhm.
salve. And it reminds me of, again, with everything you're saying, I think we do a lot of times we have this idea of it because it's how it's spoken of and because of what it can
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
We tend to think of it in terms of what can it fix. And so a
Mhm.
lot of times people don't even think to turn to their practice or to be in relationship to it unless there's something identifiable to fix. So like, oh, I need Reiki
Mhm.
because my knee hurts, or oh, my
Mhm.
client needs Reiki, so now I'm going to tune in for them. But what
Mhm.
you're saying, it's a beautiful reminder of it's not necessarily just when we're aware of something to fix, but how does it become like this continual balm for us, and
Mhm.
the really understanding, again, the deeper essence of it.
Mhm.
Ah, you're making me think a lot of things, Tanya. Like, wow, And you also mentioned a moment ago too, about intuition. And I
Mhm.
wanted to ask you about this because, some people it becomes more prominent. Some people are like, I don't know, it didn't happen for me. So,
Mhm.
what was your experience with that? Did Reiki give you a different sense of awareness?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it did. Um, because I am that Libra, that air sign, and because I was one of those little brainiac kids, I have I spent a lot of my life leaning into my intellect.
Hmm.
I was smart. I knew I was smart.
Yeah.
And, I felt I was gifted in certain areas. And in retrospect, once things started opening up for me, I realized, oh, yeah, you were smart, but you're very clairsentient.
Mm,
I was open, but I didn't recognize any of that
yeah.
until Reiki. And then I went about cultivating that practice more and more and more because during my very first attunement, um, I started seeing these bursts behind my eyes, these purple swirls. And I've had other people speak to that before as well.
Mhm.
And I I felt like it was an opening. And my teacher at the time, Trudy Bledsoe, I remember she said, that was your third eye opening.
Mm,
And so I've come to identify that as my third eye opening, and it happens all the time now. If I'm lying on an acupuncture table, or I might be doing self Reiki, or I might be receiving a massage. But it's like my chi, my energy field is clearing. It allows me to really tune in and things to open up,
right.
and I can connect deeper.
Yes.
And so that was what I witnessed during my first Reiki attunement. And it just got deeper and deeper with other attunements. And then, I started to cultivate it, actually taking classes on psychic development and being part of a meditation group where we would meditate and we would share messages, and even the Reiki share that I co-facilitate each month. I forgot to mention that. I've been doing that with Reverend Robert Allen Warren. We started with Rev Bear. He and I started it in 2019. COVID hit, and we took it online.
Yeah.
So we've been doing this virtually. But part of what we do is, as we are in the Reiki energies and working within people's energies, we're also listening, looking, sensing, hearing, opening ourselves to what else we may receive. That's an extension of that Reiki healing.
Yeah.
And we have taught a lot of people to lean into their intuitive sense through that practice. So, in a sense, it's a community of healing, and it's also a training ground for people who are novices to Reiki or who never had that as part of their practice,
Right.
so that they can learn to open to their intuitive senses.
Can I tell there are two things that you said that I'm like, oh, you just keep saying things. I'm like, I'm so glad you're saying this. But I love that you describe it as an extension of the Reiki healing because a lot of people also wonder, you know,
Mhm.
what if I'm not intuitive and is that separate from Reiki or what is Reiki? A lot
Right.
of people get some confusion, especially when there are some that become more intuitively aware and then again, someone else that may not necessarily be their experience. But I love the way you describe it as it can be an extension of the healing. That's really beautifully said. But you made me think of this, I think will help a lot of people too. I, like you, more analytical, lived in my head. I'm Aquarius, also air.
Okay.
And so it was very hard for me to understand the concept of feeling without processing it through the lens of I would just translate it in a very analytical way. And
Hmm.
so, it's funny, hindsight, I had a friend that would say, when I would tell stories of something that should be emotional, I was very matter of fact about it. Like I just
Hmm.
didn't make that connection. Reiki cracked me open to all of a sudden I was like,
Hmm.
oh, what is this? But I point that out because even with what you share, I think it's a fascinating thing that this practice can also teach us other languages. So it can open us up to different ways of thinking, a new way
Hmm.
of accessing our consciousness, understanding the different levels of processing our knowing. So it's not just
Hmm. Hmm.
analytical, um, but also that relationship to feeling and being able to
Yeah.
translate that, but in its
Hmm.
own power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Hmm.
I love that. We get people who come to the share who are like, they're silent at first.
Yeah.
They don't want to say anything. It's like, well, I didn't really get anything because they're comparing.
Yes.
Because you know how we get in trouble when we compare, right? So
Yes.
they're comparing to these messages that others are giving. They might see these technicolor things and have this and that. And so Reverend Robert Allen Warren and I like to remind them it's like, one, there's no obligation to share. You
Yeah.
don't have to. You know, it's okay if nothing came to you. And if something came to you, there's no need to minimize it.
Hmm.
You never know what might have meaning for someone. So then you start hearing people slowly say, well, I saw this color around you, or I started to smell such and such when I was working with you, or I was guided to go here. And the person, the recipient, would say something to verify the meaning it had for them.
Mm.
And that would build the confidence.
Yeah.
So, more and more as these folks would come back, they would feel more confident in sharing and knowing that they don't have to do any interpreting.
Yes.
Just share what you're experiencing, and that person may have some meaning right then or at some other point. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a beautiful advice. And, I think it also highlights how in this realm, because I did the same as you, once I started having like more aware of things in a non-physical way, I also went and took all the classes for intuition and all these things. 'Cause I was like, what is
Hmm.
this? But there is an assumption. A lot of people only associate intuition with I saw something. Like they think it's just this
Hmm.
physical seeing, like you're going to see an apparition in the room. Where, to your point, there are lots of ways that we can perceive in a
Hmm.
non-physical way, and also,
Hmm.
again, there's a variety of translation that happens in that realm. So I'm glad that you share that. But I have to go back to another part of your story because while you were talking, it came to mind this pivot in purpose or pivot, but not losing your purpose. And the
Mm.
reason I say this is because I don't want to gloss over what you shared, how powerful your work, your body of work in of itself is interesting, right? Because you said a lot of things and I was like, gosh, there's all kinds of therapists, psychotherapists, speech therapy, like any kind of therapist, massage therapist, right? And then but you always have like this spiritual tone underneath, even when you may have been doing things that may have seemed more traditional, right? And then you
Mhm.
come into this work with Reiki, and even still, it's almost like you were, I don't know how to explain it. It feels like to say you were learning to articulate yourself in
Mm.
in new ways, right?
Mhm.
And then life happened and there were shifts and you had to pivot. And it seemed like, oh no, now I can't work this way anymore. And now I have to do other things. And
Mhm.
but your path keeps expanding. But no
Mhm.
matter the way it pivots, it seems like you never have lost that string somehow of your purpose. And that has
Mm.
shown itself in a variety of ways. So I just
Mm.
wonder if you could share a little bit about that, like how, no matter how life changes, you have stayed, I guess, true to your way, true to your being, because a lot
Mm.
of people
Mhm.
think they're doing it wrong if life doesn't
Right.
stay consistent.
Right. Right. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. And bringing up one of the Reiki precepts, which I have to always remind myself, just for
Yeah.
today, I will stay true to my way and being.
Yeah.
Um, it has taken a while to get to that point to understand that it doesn't really matter what I do, really leaning into the beingness of life and knowing that I am the healing.
Yeah.
Um, and, as a way of looking at that, knowing what are the ways that I show up, it's like I show up as safe space. Call it the Reiki presence, whether it's through the retreats that we do, whether it's through coaching that I may do, whether it's through these books that I write, whether it's through, the relax and restore sessions or, the classes that I teach. And right now, where, you know, the economy is hard.
Hmm.
And living in the DMV, when there's any government instability, the first thing to go is holistic services.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's as simple as that. So, another pivot that I've made is I've been doing a lot of substitute teaching to
Hmm.
supplement. my business income, right?
Yeah.
And so I was feeling a little bummed at one point about that. And I realized, girl, and this was, I swear this was just last week when I realized it's like, you are still in your purpose. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? I am showing up at that school with the Reiki presence.
Yes.
The children feel it, the other teachers and administrators feel it. Um, and I am being safe space. I am holding that energy and I'm tired as all get out when I leave
Yeah.
because I am holding that space like nobody's business.
Yeah.
I'll have to show you. Today, I had a class that came in, Hayes the substitute. That's what I
Oh,
call it. Hayes the substitute, that's what they do. They acted a fool, as my mother would say.
yeah.
And I made sure to let their teacher know that they were rude, they were not being safe with their bodies, they were, calling names, what have you. I don't know if you can see this, but these are all apology cards.
Oh, wow.
He had them write to me. And I got such delight going through these cards and what these children, this was the fourth grade class, who was acting, usually it's the fourth and fifth grade, but they, oh my goodness, they were really expressing and really showing appreciation for who I am and apologizing for making it hard for me.
Oh, wow.
And it was just everything because last week before, I was coming off of a situation where a first grader had pushed me, kicked
Oh,
me,
wow.
cursed me, threatened all the things, right? And I'm not alone. I mean, if he's doing this to me, throwing desks and everything, all the kids are experiencing this.
Right.
So for me, it's knowing that I am not going to turn into another trigger for these children.
Mm,
They have enough trauma going on in their lives. So, what can I do to help mitigate that? How can I be safe space for them?
wow.
So, no, I'm not going to go off on them. I'm not going to strike back. No, that's just against my nature anyway.
Yeah.
But how would Reiki show up?
Mm,
How would Reiki show up? So, I have to remind myself all the time. So they call me names. Child, I mean, some of these schools, it's like you think they've never seen a black woman. They ain't never
in the
seen a
DMV?
bald woman. I'm like, as a teacher at least
Yes, yes,
in their
yes.
life,
Yeah.
you know. And they make up all sorts of things. They try to figure out all sorts of things and they try to strike
Yeah.
because they've been struck in some way, right?
Right.
So they try to strike a nerve. And I had one child at one time say, what did he say? Do you know what rage baiting is?
Mm,
And then he proceeded to try to rage bait me throughout the class. And
yeah.
I'm like, they haven't understood that they are not going to take me there
Right.
because the Reiki is going to keep me as sacred space.
Yes. That is so
So,
powerful. It's so funny because right at the start of the story, I wrote down, you have such a, if I had to describe your presence, it feels like a strong tenderness. So there's a strength there, but there's this like over coating of tenderness, but you can
mhm,
still, the strength
thank
is
you.
still very present, you know?
Mhm.
But what I love about this is one, you said, how would Reiki show up? I was like, ooh, that's a good question. But you also highlight how it's not separate from what we would call our day-to-day life. But the fact that you would have the mindfulness of that, that's one of the most powerful things I think of how this work changes us. And
Mhm.
again, it's not just what can it fix in terms of an ailment, but what
Mhm.
does it start to show us about our decisions and how
Yeah.
we show up? Like that conscious choice of this child is losing their mind. And yet I am going to remain sick. The power that would take. I mean, really, truly. And
Mhm.
so, I mean, I think that's some of the beauty again of this work that no one talks about is how
Hmm.
it brings you into those kinds of decisions and how it brings you
Hmm.
into that type of awareness that you said, this child, because most people would go, well, I did this because this kid did da da da. I responded because that kid. And you said, wow, this child has some trauma and I'm not going to add to it.
Hmm.
Miss Tanya, that's big stuff. I mean, but again, that's like that's why I love Reiki so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
The ways that these kinds of changes that happen within us,
Hmm.
it's a
Hmm.
beautiful, beautiful thing. I just, I love that you're pointing that's not separate from. So even you laughing about no matter where we are in our life, no matter what we're showing up to do for work, no matter what is going on with us, Reiki isn't separate from that.
Right.
And I love, love, love that message. I wanted to make sure to ask you too, because look how fast the time goes. Back when we met in 2018, you mentioned the acronym WITCH, but
Hmm.
you were telling me right before we recorded, this has now evolved
Yeah.
into two different volumes of books. Could you tell us first what the acronym is
Hmm.
and what the book series is about?
Sure. So when I actually wrote my first fiction book, and I think it's my only published fiction book. I have, you know how writers have published and unpublished works,
Yes.
but it's called Diary of a Witch's Daughter. And in the book, the it's a coming of age story. This teenage girl is dealing with her mom being a witch. That's
Mhm.
what her friends call her. And the mom owns it.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, I'm a witch. I am a woman in tune with conscious healing.
Mm.
And you know what? That's just what I'm raising you to be as well. And so, I dabbled with that a bit. That was a spiritual download
Yeah.
for witch, right? And so I would have some witch suppers, a series where I'd have different women in tune with conscious healing to come in and share their modalities, their teachings, etc. It was a wonderful time for me to express through cooking
That's
because
why I
we
said I
taught you
was
to,
coming to get your food because my family's
right,
in the DMV. And I told you I'm coming to get that food. I'm still
right.
coming. Okay.
Because I am a kitchen witch as well,
Yes.
and I have done the conscious catering and personal chefing and retreat chef work and all of that. But it kind of stagnated. It stalled COVID.
Hmm.
Once that happened, the series ended, et cetera, et cetera. So in 2022, I received the call that I needed to stop hiding.
Yeah.
And so I came out of the broom closet, so to speak, on 2/22/2022.
Oh, wow.
And I announced that, you know, Women in Tune with Conscious Healing is a movement.
No.
It is who I am. I'm no longer hiding. I'm calling forth other women. And so I started an anthology. And so I had 33 women
Wow.
to come together, all identifying as women in tune with conscious healing. It was a coming out for many of them who, they've been witchy woo woo, but they haven't wanted to use that title, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Many didn't. We had all sorts of healers and mystics and coaches and artists and intuitives and channels, just people, Reiki healers, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera. And then people who go to an office, they do what they do, but they integrate healing in their work, they understand what it is. So it was powerful. Women found their voice. I'm once again like Reiki, how we open our channel
Hmm.
and let it do what it do. I opened myself as a channel for these women's voices. I had no idea
Wow.
the impact,
Yeah.
the powerful impact of telling their stories and what it would have for these 33 women. And so we've done, book signings. We had a beautiful 6 night. I don't know how I did that. No clue. Facilitating 33 authors, being the editor, writing the intro and the preface, and coordinating these women across 6 nights of Zoom
Wow.
presentations, healings, um, giving out door prizes, having woo-saw moments, having keynotes every night, having ritual and ceremony. It was delicious. It was amazing. It was huge. And it's like, I can't do that again. But I knew after working with it for a while that I was called to do volume two.
Mhm.
So, volume two, I listened and it's like, okay, 22 sacred voices, because we called the first book the 33 Sacred Voices. And Spirit was working with me, telling me that you don't get to hide. You can be editor, that's fine, but you didn't write your own story in the first volume. I had 33 separate women and
Yes.
not me.
Yes.
So I was to be part of the Sacred 22
Wow.
and to come out of hiding.
Wow.
And so we all shared our stories. We had a beautiful, condensed 4 hour event. And that was in 2025. So book one published in, trying to put
I
it up
saw a
against me,
little
but
bit.
these
Yeah.
backgrounds, but
Oh, there it
published,
is.
mhm, in December, winter solstice 2023.
Wow.
And we had the event culminating to launch the book. We had another event in 2024, Seven Witches healing through the seven chakras. So getting the witches back together and having an event. And then this last year, 2025, we had
Wow.
volume
Those
two.
are beautiful covers.
And both covers were designed by Reverend Anem.
Those are beautiful.
Anem Bay, one of my partners who is a graphic artist. She's also in the first volume
Mm.
of the book, but she has designed all my book covers. And so they're very mystical and magical and evoke all sorts of feeling. So we go through a process. We go through a process with this. It's not just, okay, submit your story and you get published.
Yeah.
I work with them starting January or February of the year. We have weekly writing sessions. We have check-ins. I have one-on-one coaching sessions with them to
Wow.
pull out those stories. And some women don't make it through. They start the process and all sorts of things are opened up. And it's like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready.
Mm.
And I had some who started in volume one and ended up being published in volume two
Wow.
because it took that long. And so now I'm hearing that I am to continue every other year with these books. And this was one of my shower downloads. I don't know what it is about water, but I receive things in
Same.
water. You do? Yeah.
Yes.
So it was like, okay, we're gonna have specialized which voices for teens, which voices for elders,
Wow.
which voices for artists. So there'll be more of a thematic
Incredible.
type release with it. And it was interesting because in the midst of doing this book, that's when Mama Ife Tayo was doing Reiki Heart and Soul. So I submitted my piece for Mama Ife Tayo prior to doing my own piece for my own book.
Wow. Can I tell you, it's incredible because listening to you, I was thinking it puts emphasis on how collaborative this community is and the
Hmm.
power in that. Because I was thinking, like, you did these beautiful anthologies. We got to be in this anthology together, the one that Mama Ifatayo put together. But there are
Hmm.
several other women that have done, similar things. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
think how beautiful and collaborative this community is. And it's
Mhm.
bringing to mind how I hear a lot of women, throughout my life that have said, how there's a thing of like, oh, you're a girl's girl or not. Or people say like, oh, she's not show up for women or women. People have had some bad experiences with their good girlfriends, right?
Right.
But then you see on the flip side, in this
Mhm.
community, there's just over and over again this show of support and togetherness
Yes.
and collaboration. And talk about the healing that that's doing for what
Yes.
so many people have experienced.
Absolutely. You know, my favorite African proverb, when spider webs unite, they can bind up a lion,
Ooh.
right? S- So I love when we unite, when we weave together. And yes, in volume 1, Mama Ife Tayo is in this book. She anchors it as our elder.
Mm,
And also from Reiki Heart and Soul, Crystal McElveen
yes.
and Mama Moot.
Okay.
They are in the first volume of this book. We all travel in the same circles, and it
Yeah.
has opened up writing. And like Mama Moot, she wrote her book
Wow.
after breaking through with the first volume of Witch Voices, and several of the women did that. They went on to publish their own books after being having been in Witch Voices because it is a clearing.
Is this
That throat
available that
chakra energy.
we
Part
can get? I mean, are the books still available to the public? You have links
oh,
where we
oh
can?
yeah, definitely. They're on
Okay.
Amazon.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, I didn't mean to interrupt. So please tell us about this throat clearance because goodness knows that's what you about in 2018, and we need that even still now. The power of clearing this throat chakra energy.
Yes. When I worked with each person, one, there was the power of the collective,
Mhm.
all of us coming to the writing circles together, talking, listening, witnessing, and inspiring each other. And I also created a way that the women could go in and they could read the other stories as they were developing. I had it all on a Google Drive, right?
Yeah.
And so that would inspire them. And I would just always want them go deeper, go deeper, go
Yeah.
deeper. There's more to the story. And then some came ready.
Yeah.
They just knew they were ready. But it was an encouragement. It was having someone witness and to know that you're not alone
Yes.
on your journey and that your voice matters.
Mhm.
And, some chose, they didn't do this the first time, but in the second volume, we have a couple of people who published under a pseudonym and just making it okay for that to happen too.
Yeah.
We're all in different places on a journey, and you are still sharing your story powerfully.
Right.
So
Yes.
what if you don't put your government name to it,
Yes.
you know?
Oh, so many things I gotta ask you when we're done recording this. But it's so beautiful. And again, like I feel like there's a lot that was woven through that you've shared that have just been such an inspiration. And we had no idea where this conversation, I didn't know where this conversation was gonna go
Neither.
today. But there are just so many beautiful aspects of your journey that are very, very inspiring. And so I'm so thankful that we get to hear all of this from you. And it's beautiful to hear the way that, again, you keep like blossoming along the way, no matter how life shifts and changes. It's incredible. So I'm gonna make sure that we put the links for the books down in the show description because I'm gonna order too. But you also told me that you have something coming up, an academy that may be coming
Mhm.
out in the fall. Could you tell us a little bit about that so we can get excited?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah,
So, I think a lot of some of my projects have long gestation periods.
yeah.
So, back in 2017, Reverend M, the book designer,
Mm,
and I and another friend, we were like, we want to do a school, a metaphysical school.
mm,
We want to talk about metaphysics and the celestial sciences and the occult and holistic work and shamanism and all those things,
yes.
right? And so it's just been kind of simmering on the burner. The other friend kind of went in a separate direction. And so we brought it back out a few years ago. And I guess it's been the last 2 years that we've actually been cultivating our community,
Mm,
where we have different healers who've come forth from different walks of life. And we've been working on building our curriculum, building our 9 different areas of education. And, it's the opportunity, it's a learning platform, but it's more.
yeah.
Everything is always more, right?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
a community. It's an opportunity to bring forth this esoteric information, this holistic information. It's a way of empowering others to not just learn, but to see, okay, how can you teach this?
Yes.
And once you go through, you get certified in this, or this, coaching, leadership development, sound healing, what have you can in turn teach at the academy too.
Mm,
So it really is this reciprocal dance.
yeah.
And so it has taken a lot of work, and Reverend Nim has spearheaded a lot of it. But I use my background in education, curriculum development to work with the different folks on our team and to, get our courses together. So, we will launch this year and it will evolve into a number of different things.
Yes.
But the I'll say the the flat three-dimensional thing is it's a learning platform,
Right.
teaching metaphysics, and it's so much more.
Well, definitely once it officially launches, you have to come back and have a deeper conversation about it because already my mind has questions around all of it. And because I personally, that was just what I did on my own. And I thought, like, man, it
Mm,
would have been nice to have a space like that in terms of, where my curiosities led me and what I've studied and all over the map. But all of it has been so enriching. And a lot of things I just said this in speaking with Susan Stone. I spoke with her earlier today,
oh, okay.
and I was telling her how my study of other philosophies and traditions actually helped me understand Reiki with more depth. And so
Mm,
it tends to be that way. But with what you just said as well, it reminded me of, gosh, how powerful it is that now a lot of what we're studying and a lot of what people are remembering and a lot of what people are going back to and reconnecting to from, ancestral tradition and these sorts of things,
mhm,
now what's going to be passed down is so much
mhm,
more empowering than a lot of
mhm.
us. What was passed down to us were the fear and the
Yes.
confusion around a lot of this work and what it really means to be connected to all there is. You know,
Mhm.
it's incredible to think what these next generations will be empowered with now
Mhm.
having so much of who will be the elders for them
Yes.
reconnecting to this level of work. So I
Mm.
can't wait for you to
Mm.
come back and tell us all about it.
Okay.
This
I
is
look
good
forward to
stuff.
that.
Yes. Well, I have to thank you so much again for taking the time to come and have another conversation. The link for the book, Reiki Heart and Soul, Many Stories, One Bright Light. I'm so glad to talk to you because you really brought more life to this. I was curious after reading your story, and here I will put the links for the Witch series books, both
Mhm.
volumes that you've created and put into the world. And what is the best way for people to connect with you? Do you do
Mhm.
social media, website? How do we?
Yeah, yeah, I do social media. Throat Chakra Shaman, definitely on Instagram and Facebook. But they can connect with me via I'll the email that's easiest to remember is throatchakrashaman@gmail.com.
Okay.
That is one way of connecting with me. My website for my business, Mind, Body, and Soul Food, is still under construction. It has been a time. doing that as we evolve and into the different ways of being, et cetera, et cetera. So, looking forward to that coming out by the fall as well.
That's an incredible name. I love the name, the URL for that. Okay, well, then when you come back, we'll make sure to put that link down in the show description, but I'll put to reach you on Instagram and Gmail at Throat Chakra Shaman. And thank you again for coming.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure connecting with you again, Yolanda. You are a delight. And
Thank
yes, we
you.
need to connect and
Oh,
do
I'm
some
coming for
food.
that food.
Okay.
Without a doubt. And for all of you, thank you so much for joining us. Go down in the show links and get your books today. Bye for now. Okay, beautiful alchemist. I just want to thank Tonya again. It was so beautiful to reconnect with her after all of these years. And don't forget to check out her series of books called the Witch Book Series. The link is down in the show description, as well as the beautiful book that we were both contributors to, Reiki Heart and Soul, Many Stories, One Bright Light by Ifatayo White. And the link is down in the show description as well. I am loving these conversations. I hope you are enjoying them too. There's just so much information that is so relatable, and I think it's important. It's important for us to hear. These are the conversations I wish were available at the time when I first started on this path and when I didn't know anyone in close proximity, no one in my personal life who was practicing or studying the same things as I. And so these conversations, again, they mean so much to me because I know how important and powerful they can be for all of us. So if you know anyone who would enjoy or benefit from these conversations, be sure to share Reiki Radio with them. You can share with your friends, your community, your family on social media. I greatly appreciate it. Don't forget, you can also go to whatever platform you listen or watch, you tune in to Reiki Radio, give us a 5 stars, just leave a review, whatever. All of those things really support the podcast still being shared. And I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. You have no idea. It's been since 2013 sharing with you all in this way. And I love it still as if it was just the beginning. So thank you to you all. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to join me in the monthly activation circles where you can access on the Energetic Alchemist app. So download the app right now if you haven't already and mark your calendar with the dates of these beautiful events. One is called Reiki Roundtables, that is on the first Monday of every month. And then we have the Seeker Circle, which is on the second Sunday of every month. Again, the links to join are on the Energetic Alchemist app. And these are activation circles, so you don't want to miss it. I will see you there in May. Have a beautiful day, my loves. Remember to always journey in love.